Welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones, and we're so glad to have you here. Belleville has a new mayor, 24-year-old Frank Vélez, one of the youngest in New Jersey state history. He defeated incumbent Michael Mellom after serving on the school board and town council and working for former Congressman Bill Pascrell. Standing by is Mayor Frank Vélez to talk a little bit about his agenda. First, Montclair State University is now the new operator of NJ PBS. Starting July 1st, the university's College of Communication and Media took over management of New Jersey's public television stations, bringing back local control to the Garden State after more than a decade under out-of-state operation. Joining us to discuss what this means is Dr. Keith Strudler, Dean of Montclair State's College of Communication and Media. Dean, thank you for joining us. Good to see you.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, can you break it down for the viewers who may not understand everything going on behind the scenes, what it means for Montclair State to now operate PBS in New Jersey?
Sure. I mean, so it's a very exciting opportunity. It's a big moment for us, certainly for a whole lot of reasons. And it's a great moment, I think, for the folks in the state of New Jersey who, as you alluded to, will now have their public television station and their public media back operating in their home state. So really for us, this is the opportunity to not only operate the station out of our building and to provide a nightly live newscast, but also really to serve the public and the folks in New Jersey in making sure that their community voices are heard, that they have an opportunity to find space in public media, that they have folks telling their stories, and that groups of folks that are making content and telling stories across the state have a new broadcast home. So in many ways, operating New Jersey PBS doesn't mean simply that Montclair State University is now going to be kind of broadcasting the station, which obviously we will be, as well as digital platforms and social media and so forth. It really means that we are kind of democratizing and expanding the voices from across the state to kind of collectively and collaboratively create a home for all the great stories that are being told in the state of New Jersey.
Well, let's start a little bit about how significant it is for the university, for its students, for the College of Communication and Media.
So it's great, right? And if I were a student now, you may tell I'm just slightly past my undergraduate days. But look, a couple things to kind of point out. One, this is, as everyone knows, a professional public media station. So we are, as we speak, in the process of interviewing and hiring a really, really outstanding staff and leaders that are going to run the station. So that's A. So there'll be a truly kind of a top-notch, world-class professional staff operating it. But I said this to a lot of folks, we wouldn't have bid for this if it was simply the opportunity to operate a TV station, right? That's not entirely our sole mission. We're doing this because not only do we have the opportunity to serve the public and community service and so forth in operating a TV station, but also we have the opportunity to provide incredible workforce development and learning opportunities. I think increasingly families recognize that going to college has to be far more than a transactional process where you send your kids away or they commute and you pay tuition, and at the end of those 4 years they have a degree and then they apply for jobs. Really, our goal is to help people prepare for their future. And doing that in a bunch of different ways. One of them is to ensure that they have the opportunity to truly engage in real workforce activities, to really, beyond kind of like a traditional internship, but to really engage with what happens in the workplace and to also have some impact on kind of that information going forward. Our students are going to have that now in spades. So students, when they come to Montclair, are going to be able to take classes that are studying, contributing to what's happening at PBS. Our best students will be shadowing and interning. Furthermore, and I think something we alluded to quite a bit in our proposal process, we don't see this simply in any way as just a Montclair thing. In putting our proposal together, we form partnerships with universities across the state who are also preparing their workforce development plans where their students are also working with faculty, staff, and so forth in communities to create opportunities for them to learn more about public media and to create content that might also appear on digital and linear platforms. So we really see this as an opportunity for folks across the state of New Jersey and young people across the state of New Jersey to really get hands-on training in media. And I think, again, as we all know, there's an explosion in what's happening in the media universe in New Jersey, starting with all the studio projects that are moving into our state. What better way to make sure that our students are prepared to thrive in that workforce of the future and that economy of the future than giving them real hands-on opportunities while they're undergraduate students?
Now, my very first job when I moved to this area was volunteering at NJN. So New Jersey Network, which ultimately became New Jersey PBS. Now Montclair State is running it. So this is something that people of the state of New Jersey are very, very passionate about. Reporters are, there were a number of people who were bidding on it to get this. And they're curious. What is it going to look like, right? We used to have NJN that delivered a nightly newscast very focused on everything happening in the state. We don't have a state-run broadcast, ABC, CBS, NBC in New Jersey. We're wedged between New York and Philadelphia, as people know. So they're curious, what are the immediate plans for PBS, right? We've been watching Spotlight News and some other programming, but what is the early focus going to be in terms of news, public affairs, and local storytelling?
Sorry. And so I will try to not get too far over my skis. Obviously, as we speak, we are interviewing and hiring a general manager and a news director, and then a staff, obviously, including reporters that will be working with them. I want to make sure that we always give them the bandwidth to really be creative and to build what that ecosystem looks like. So a lot of the things, obviously, if you've seen in our proposal, are the directions we're going to go. One thing that we were very clear on is that there will be a daily live, Monday through Friday, live newscast. And we think that's an imperative, and that's one of the things that I think will be kind of a cornerstone of the kind of storytelling that we'll take. We also will have reporters stationed across the state. There's a question like early on, was everyone going to work in the building in Montclair? And the answer to that is no. We're going to have people in South Jersey and in Central Jersey that will be reporting and covering stories. So we expect storytelling to be coming from across the state. And we imagine that's going to expand as we go forward. And that, of course, will include coverage of the legislature and of our Capitol. So we see that as well. We also think that there's going to be an extensive focus on providing more real-time news and information using digital and social tools. So while we recognize how interested folks are going to be in kind of our evening newscast, that's really just kind of the tip of the iceberg. Part of what we're going to be focused on quite a bit is making sure that we're able to give real-time news and information using the platforms where people are already. And so I don't think it's, it almost is cliche to remind people that Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and so forth, this is where conversations are happening. We want to increasingly make sure that NJ PBS is at the heart and cornerstone of those conversations. And then lastly, what I'll say is, it's one thing just to look at kind of our org chart and talk about the reporters that we'll have in place that will be kind of day one reporting on stories and working on the nightly newscast. But part of, I think, one of the real exciting parts about having this housed at Montclair is we're able to leverage the networks that have been built through our Center for Cooperative Media, which really is the national leader in building collaborative and cooperative news ecosystems, particularly in the state of New Jersey. So there are hundreds and hundreds of newsmakers, storytellers, hyperlocals across the state that are actually in communities, publishing, in their hyperlocal publications, on social and so forth. We want to make sure that those stories and those storytellers and folks that are telling the news and are reporting on things that are happening are part of our ecosystem. So we imagine, particularly as we grow the product over the first year, you'll see increasing numbers of voices that might be affiliates of NJ PBS.
Final thoughts here. So many newsrooms are shrinking, and also just myself as a reporter, people complain about the state of journalism today, and you were alluding to this. When reporters don't feel like their management has their back, they feel like, well, somebody's going to be checking in, and we don't want to upset people who are running this. Can you talk about how your vision, how does this strengthen that local reporting? Because again, so many newsrooms, they're being gutted. They're shrinking. There aren't people that have that institutional knowledge, and then ultimately it isn't serving the public. So can you just final thoughts address that, please?
Yeah, so I think one of the reasons why universities are outstanding homes for public media is because they do provide both that fiscal backstop as well as the stability that's needed to give reporters, folks working in this space, the security they need to do their job. I think it's really, really hard to work in media right now if you are constantly of concern that the next round of layoffs is coming in a month. Right. And I think that's just the reality that's kind of unfortunate for almost everyone working in this space, even from the most seemingly stable, large media organizations and companies. I think the university provides quite a bit of stability to that. I mean, fortunately, as we know, Montclair State's not a startup. We've been around for a few years. And on top of that, one of the things that a university does, if they're doing it right, is they provide the bandwidth and the security for the freedom of speech and expression. There are very few places where people are able to speak freely and openly more than a university campus. It's kind of what the tenure system is built around. And so we actually think that being on a university campus will not only give our reporters and the folks working in news and culture and arts and media and so forth the kind of fiscal security to know that their jobs are secure, but and kind of the support of the university and thankfully the support of the state, but also kind of the security to know that when they are speaking openly to, for lack of a better word, openly to power, that they are going to be surrounded amongst other folks that do the same thing in their work.
All right, Dean Strudler, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much.
Belleville has a new mayor, and he's one of the youngest in New Jersey history. 24-year-old Frank Vélez was elected in May, defeating incumbent Michael Mellom. Vélez has been involved in local politics since he was 19, serving on the Belleville School Board and Town Council. He also worked on the staff of former Congressman Bill Pascrell. His campaign focused on quality of life issues and responsible development. The election comes just weeks after a massive 14-alarm warehouse fire forced school closures and drew sharp criticism over how town officials communicated with residents during the emergency. Joining us now is Belleville's newly elected mayor, Frank Vélez. Mayor, congratulations. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for the invitation, and I'm very happy to be here and on the show with you today.
Well, at just 24 years old, now leading Belleville, what motivated you to get into politics at 19? And how has your experience on school board and town council prepared you for the role that you're in now?
Well, yes, I've really had just an amazing journey to the mayor's office. As you noted, I started off as a teenager in elected office. So I started real early. And, for me, it just goes back to family. I have a younger sister with special needs that really motivated me toward running for the school board and really the issues that face so many families in our community and so many communities across the state and across the country. I was really, really grateful to have been elected on the Board of Education and been able to serve a full term. We did some wonderful things, really expanding our special needs program, establishing a life skills home, really making critical investments for services for all of our students and families and educators. And I was really grateful after my service on the Board of Education to have been elected to the Township Council, where I've been since. And I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity now with the support of the community to now serve as Belleville's new mayor come July 1st.
I mean, that's incredible because so many families, myself included, I have special needs children, they're now young adults, but it is so hard, so frustrating to be that advocate, to try and navigate the system. And at such a young age, for you to take that and turn it into something where you're helping others, that's really quite extraordinary.
Yeah, it's really been a journey. It's so important, that we need to be able to represent everyone in government, especially our special needs population. We've really been grateful to have been able to spotlight some important programs and really be able to extend that really important line of communication to so many families, because sometimes people don't feel like government is accessible, and you have to do everything you can to really open that doorway for everybody, every family. I've really been grateful to just keep communication and really engaged with the community, not just when it's election time,
Yeah.
but the entire time in office.
Yeah, so not only helping your family, helping others, and then taking it up
Right.
to where you're a leader of a mayor, you're CEO of your town. And you ran on a campaign of getting back to basics, focusing on quality of life, responsible development. So what exactly does that mean in practical terms for those living in Belleville?
Right, right. So yes, we ran an important campaign of getting back to the basics and the quality of life. What that means is really getting back to nuts and bolts of things, really to the everyday problems that people are facing, the things people feel, right? So that's the streets, that's the sidewalks, the parks, that kind of development that goes up in a community. Because unlike many communities in Belleville, we're actually exempt from having to build more housing. We actually have to focus on remediating existing units. So for us, we have a bit more flexibility in the kind of development we could have in Belleville. And I think it's really important for us to be able to utilize that in a very community centered way, really focus on bringing more business, more ratables here in town, definitely kind of look at where we can go where it's not just thinking about how we can bring new people, which is especially important, but how do we benefit the residents who are already living here, the families who are already living here, the seniors who could barely afford to stay here. That's really been a main focus, really talking to people about their problems where they are. And that's really the main platform that we were elected on by nearly 60% margin.
I mean, so you've got short-term, long-term, ongoing issues, and then you have something like the recent warehouse fire. And that created, the emergencies, that created a lot of frustration in the community, especially around communication. So let's talk a little bit about your plans to improve how the town communicates with those living there during an emergency.
Yeah, communication is extremely important to me for anybody following the last election and really just the last, 5.5 years I've been in office. I've done everything I can to communicate things that are going on in town, both on the Board of Education and the township end. And really, in the last few years, especially as I've become a councilman, I've tried to do more to really engage the community on different emergencies like the fire. Anybody who would scroll through my social media could see, if a major roadway closes, if there is an accident, if there's any important notification that needs to go out to residents, I literally am there and I am filming to get the message out so that everybody knows what's happening, when it's happening as appropriate, and be able to get that out there. For example, Route 21 was closed not too long ago, and I actually went to show residents that it was closed. And there were many residents who actually commented, "Wow, thank God you told me, because if you didn't tell me, I would have been stuck in 5 hours of traffic." And then unfortunately, there were people who said, "Oh, I saw this video too late. I was stuck in 5 hour traffic." So it shows the importance of engagement and getting that information out there for all the residents.
Well, and then there are different ways to communicate, right? A lot of people are on social media. There's not necessarily a one size fits all. But when it comes to communicating, I think people can be pretty understanding if they just know what's going on. So when it comes to your immediate priorities, there are a lot of concerns following this fire that parents raised, families, community members raised during and following the fire. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Right, right. So, when the fire broke out, the schools did close for some time. And because of that, there was frustration. A lot of parents, again, working parents especially, who don't always have the, luxury of having remote work. It was tough, right? Because you think of childcare, you have to think about how you're going to schedule their day, how you're going to do everything you can to pay the bills. And I think, for them, it was really just an upsetting time because it was not only the fire that they were having to endure in terms of the offset, right? Especially those who actually lived in the vicinity of the fire, especially with the wind. It was interesting. A lot of Belleville, the way the wind was blowing, it was blowing eastward. So there were a lot of people, again, that smoke, it was going toward the valley section where it was, and it stayed there for some time. There were concerns about air quality. So that's why they had to make the decision to close the schools and keep them remote. And it really was a frustrating decision, I think, for a lot of people, but it was a difficult one, right? So being on the Board of Education, I know a lot of different factors come into play. There was a lot of infrastructure that was unfortunately injured, so to speak, or broken or tampered with, lack of a better word, because of the fire, specifically the cables throughout town. So the schools did feel that they had to close. But going back to communication, I think, unfortunately, especially with how the school district runs, certain things you are not able to communicate due to the confidentiality and all sorts. But I know for me going forward, I'm going to do everything I can to not only communicate with the Board of Education, but try to get information out as quick as possible in a way that they might not be able to do. Because again, they're under a different set of guidelines here in New Jersey that are very stringent.
Yeah, so you've had to endure. The town's been through a lot, and it's very emotional. It's and the town's seen some division in the recent weeks. So how do you plan on bringing the community together and rebuilding trust in local government?
Right. I think that's a really great segue into just our overall message of, basic respect, civility, and bringing people together. If you look at the results in this election, I mean, we won. Really, really, it was a big win, and it wasn't just in one part of the town. It was throughout the entire town, in every neighborhood, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, young or old. It was a resounding win, but it was a resounding win for the community and by the community. And for us, what's really important is getting that work done, not just every 4 years, but every single day. And we're really connecting with the community, building up that trust by walking the streets still every day, right? It wasn't just for a vote. We're literally going block by block, street by street, asking people, okay, the election's over, right? You voted, thank you so much. But now, what can we follow up on? What can we do? What do you need help with? Right. And then you hear about the tree, you hear about the sidewalk, you hear about the unrelated sometimes.
Right.
But I think it's the duty of the elected officials, of the mayor and council, to be accessible, to be there listening to people's concerns directly. Because like you noted, not everybody has social media.
Yeah.
And also some people, again, not everybody feels comfortable commenting on a page or a post that's getting thousands of likes. They might feel a little more private, but they also might not feel like they want to send you an essay. So, as an elected official, it's our job, my job, to do everything I can to be as accessible as possible and do more work and do everything I can to make that happen. So, yeah, accessibility is key.
So can you talk about some specific next steps that you're going to be taking to, again, improve quality of life in Belleville while also ensuring, development is done responsibly?
Yeah, it's a really, really, really important question. When we're talking about the development, we're talking about the quality of life. I think it's being more selective, working with the planning board, working with developers, and really working with the community and making sure that all the development is to the benefit of the community. So what that means is, again, we need to really take a step back and really analyze and not only take a survey of all the development that's been put up the last 10 years, but also look at, where are spaces where we can focus on, right? For example, there's a Kmart property or former Kmart property that has been in limbo, that has currently no active business in it. It's been like that for 6 years. That's a real great opportunity to benefit the community. Like everyone has been talking about the fire, that's about 3 acres of land. That's a lot of land, and I can tell you a lot of interest is there. But for us, we have to make sure that whatever gets put there is to the benefit, not just short term, but long term, right? We have to think about the quality of life, right? Because this is what people are going to have to walk through every single day, drive through. So really think about how also it affects the schools, right?
Yeah.
Because development has a direct effect on the schools, no matter what anybody tells you, because that's going to influence whether or not somebody wants to move to Belleville. That can also influence how many children go to the schools, whether it's 5 kids or 25 kids. Each child is also over $20,000. So we have to think about all these different factors, and that's really the kind of full frontal approach that we're looking at as the new mayor and council. And that's just a little insight as to how we're thinking about these decisions going forward.
Yeah, it's again the unintended consequences of those decisions, for better or worse. Final thoughts, just as one of the youngest mayors in the state, how does your age give you do you think your age gives you a different perspective on how to approach government and specifically Belleville?
So, as a young person, I think I offer a unique perspective, uh, just in not only into this generation, but also as just somebody who's grown up in these times, right? This is the age of social media, of AI. And I think a lot of my older colleagues, so to speak, might not have that ability firsthand to understand uh, all the changes that are going on, not only in government, but just life in general, right? And how AI, social media, and these other facets of communication are really affecting people in their everyday lives. So for me, it's about utilizing my age to benefit the community and really utilizing social media in so many different venues to really pump out that information, pump it out quickly, but also connect directly with residents of all ages. If you go on my social media, you'll see we're connecting with people who are in their 18, 19, 20, but also people in their 80s. Everybody's on the same page, and that's really rare.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that for me as a young person, as a young mayor, that I'm doing everything I can to connect with every generation because that's what government is about, representing everybody. And I think we did that in the election. I think we're going to do that in government.
Mayor, you've got a full plate, but we thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
And that'll do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.